Hey, random people out there on the internet. So we're back and wanted to show you the results from the last video where I said I was going to use my router and cut some grooves into my shelving legs, and I wanted to show you how I did it and how it came out. So how I did it. And I've recessed this just so I don't scratch up the wood because I've already cut the grooves. But as you saw in the last video, I raised this up 1/4 of an inch past the base. So each of these grooves would be 1/4 of an inch. Now, the next step is to ensure that I'm cutting it where I want to cut it. So what we do is we measure from the flat edge of our router base to the striking edge of our router bit. In my case, it's 2 1/2 inches. And we take and we set up a square, and I've just kind of put it there just so we can see it, about 2 1/2 inches from this line that I wanted to cut. And then when I put the router right up against that and slide through, it'll cut right along that line. And then in the last video, I told you I'd be sneaking up on it. So in subsequent passes, I just moved it over a little bit, made another pass, moved it over a little bit, made another pass. And when I thought I was really close, I would take the piece that I want to put in there and dry fit it and try to slip it in there just like this. And you see, actually sits in there pretty good. So let's take a look at what it looks like when I put them all in there. And I'll show you what one of the upcoming steps is, so you can see how we're going to move to the next step. All right. One important thing to remember is what's the top, what's the bottom, what's the inside, what's the outside, so on and so forth. So just FYI, this is the bottom of my shelf. This is the top. I have some pieces that look better on one side than they do on the other. This one's not too bad, but it looks kind of discolored. I don't really care for it. I want this part to be up, so I want to always make sure that I face it that way before I do the gluing or whatnot that is going to occur soon. This one is prettier on this side, so we're going to put it in here like that. And then this part will slip up on top of it like this. Now, it will be a little tighter on some than it is on others. So, may have to use just a little bit of gentle persuasion. And then, of course, before I glue it up, I'll line them all up like that. So, when I put it up, that's going to be what my shelf looks like. You'll notice that there's a tiny little gap right here, okay? And maybe just a little bit of one up there as well. But what's going to happen is that the next step involves bringing this over, putting it inside clamps like this, so that when I go to tighten up those clamps, it's going to take a lot of that slop out of it. And I'm not going to get crazy, but just to show you, when you clamp it in, let's assume I already have my glue in there. It's going to take most of that gap out of there. Maybe just a tiny little bit of a gap in there. And, you know, there's going to be a certain amount of tweaking here and there you're going to need to do. In order for it to be nice and flush on the edges. So there you can see, when I go to glue it up, all I'm going to have to do is go ahead and tighten these up so it takes those gaps out. And then when that glue dries, that wood will stay where it is. So it's actually some beautiful wood. And I know that we don't have feel-o-vision, so you can't feel this. But I can tell you that this is some super smooth, super clean cut wood. It's really, really pretty. I vacillated on whether or not I want to soften these edges because they are rather sharp. But at the same time, it's not like anybody's going to be running their hands on it, or at least I hope not. And all in all, it's really not a bad looking shelf. So let's talk about what I could have done better, what I could have done worse. And frankly, I think I did pretty good. cutting the grooves, that's always challenging. Having a steady hand is helpful. If you don't have a steady hand, you need to set up some kind of guide like I did so that router stays just exactly straight as you pass it through the wood. Because if you're not holding it against something nice and tight, it has a tendency to wander with the grain, or in some cases maybe a knot or something like that, so that when it gets to that point, it might jiggle just a little bit. And if that router jiggles while you're cutting grooves, you're going to see a little half moon cut. But if you look closely on this, you'll notice that all these joints look nice and tight. There's no big gaps anywhere, okay? And once I put that oil on there, get it glued up, I think that's going to be one sharp looking shelf. Really simple project, okay? The difference between this one and previous projects, first of all, this is some good wood. Probably got about maybe $35, $40 with wood here. Doesn't sound a lot like a lot, but in my world, that's actually a little chunk of change. The last project I did, the Brewer's House, I had $4. This time I have 10 times that much in it. By the time I put the oil and everything on there, it's probably a $40 shelf. If I wanted to sell it, I could probably get 50, 60 bucks for it. Is that worth the time I put into it? Probably not. But the fact is that I do this as a hobby. I do it because I enjoy doing it. I'm not looking to make a big profit or anything off of it. I just want to make things. I just want to make things. And if you're following along on my videos, I'm thinking you might be of a like mind. Do it because you enjoy it. If you take up a hobby or a craft that you enjoy, the last thing you want it to do is become a chore, a job, okay? If you want to do it for a living, that's fine. Some people are very successful at it. But I will tell you, there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of people who have been doing it for a long time. And then, of course, there are businesses that can batch shelves out like this every 10 minutes, on and on and on and on, whereas I've got a couple of hours invested here. So anyway, I appreciate you watching. In the last video in this series, I will be putting on some oil and gluing it all up and trying to get it finished so I can bring it into my house and we can enjoy it for years to come. So again, thanks for watching. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your shares and your comments. I appreciate your subscriptions. And as always, please be safe.